Howdy folks, Spencer here, and today I'll be breaking down the stats of the Promellian Command Battlecruiser. As always, chapters to each topic are listed below. And to start things off, let's go over how you can get this ship. So it is an Infinity Lockbox ship, meaning that it would be available from future event campaigns, just not the one currently running in 2025. And if you're on PC, it'll be added to the Infinity Lockbox tomorrow, June 3rd, and if you're over on console, they're saying that they're planning to have it arrive over there sometime around July 29th. And diving right into the stats, this has a hull modifier of 1.35, shield mod of 1.15. It has a 5-3 weapon setup with 3 device slots. I'll go over the bridge officers in a moment. Console-wise, 3 tac, 5-inch, 3 psi. Base turn rate of 8.75, impulse of 0.13, inertia of 45, so it's not the best moving ship out there, but also not the worst. For the power buffs, plus 10 to weapons, and then plus 5 to shields and engines. Being a battlecruiser, it can of course equip dual cannons. It has the inspiration ship mechanic, given it does have a command seat. And for the cruiser commands, it has all of them but attract fire, which is going to be a bit disappointing as you'll see later on. And for the mastery package, it has just your standard battlecruiser one. And for the bridge officer setup, you've got a commander engineer with command, a lieutenant commander tac with intel, lieutenant commander universal, lieutenant engineer, and ensign universal. Overall, you probably already spotted it, but this setup is ruined by the lieutenant engineer. That really limits what you can do with this ship. So let's say you want to have the lieutenant commander universal here set to science so you can do Gravwell 1. Well, when you do that, then the only tac seating you have is the lieutenant commander tac, which is also the intel seat, and then the ensign universal. Having this lieutenant opened up where, it could have been a tac would have made this much better. But as is, if you want to do that Gravwell 1, then you're putting yourself in a position where you have very limited tactical bridge officer abilities on your ship if you're wanting to also use the intel seat here. And heading over to the ship comparison, I do want to note that ships with this commander command and secondary intel seating like the Promellian has are often some of the best ships out there. That's the combo you see on ships like the Delkina, the Styx, the Friendship, and the Section 31 Command Heavy Battlecruiser. It's a combo that requires some effort to screw up, and as we head into this comparison, you're going to see that the Promellian has managed to achieve that. The 2 ships I'll be comparing the Promellian against are the Friendship Command Flight Deck Carrier, which is also an Infinity Lockbox ship, and then the Legendary Borderskew, which you can get on account-wide unlock from the Legendary Battlecruiser bundle. Both the Friendship and Legendary Borderskew are great ships, the Friendship for tanking, support, and carrier gameplay, and the Legendary Borderskew for its damage-focused layout. So starting off with the defense and mobility stats, you can see the Promellian is the weakest when it comes to defense. Both the Friendship and Borderskew do have higher hull and shield modifiers, but in exchange, the Promellian does have a better turn rate and better inertia rating than either of those ships. But these are all such low mobility stats that, realistically, none of them are that great, and you're going to find each of these ships to be a bit clunky to handle. And heading down to the bridge officer setup, again you can see just how restrictive that lieutenant engineer is on the Promellian. If you want to do a tank focused setup where you have the lieutenant commander universal set up as a psi for Gravwell, then a ship like the Friendship is going to be better. That is going to clear out that lieutenant engineer and give that to you as a universal, giving you more room to run intel abilities in the tac slot and then run your tac abilities down here in the 2 universal seats that the Friendship has. On top of that, the Friendship also has a 4-4 weapon setup, which is perfectly fine for tanking. It has the Attract Fire Cruiser command, which is really good if you're actually trying to do a tank build, and it's got 2 hangar bays. Right now, the Friendship is one of the best tanks in the game, so if that's what you're looking for and you have an Infinity T6 box, go for the Friendship. The Promellian, it's nowhere near as capable as the Friendship when it comes to the tanking playstyle. And if your objective is maximizing weapon damage, the Legendary Borderskew is cheaper and has a better layout for that. The seating isn't as flexible as the Promellian, but a locked-in Lieutenant Tac and Ensign Psi are still much more capable than that locked-in Lieutenant Engineer that the Promellian has. With the Borderskew, you can make that Lieutenant Commander Universal another tac and have plenty of room to run all of the tac and intel abilities you want. It's a very capable ship, and again, it is much more affordable. And to wrap up the comparison segment here, look, if you want to fly the Promellian, you can still build it out and get through any content you want with it. But, for this price point, it is just worth noting that for every role that you could use the ship for, like tanking, torps, or even standard do setups, there's going to be many other ships in the game that can do those setups much better, and quite often at a much cheaper price point. Again, it's your money. If you want to fly this ship, you can make it work. It's just not that great of an offering at this price point. And now heading over to the accessories, let's see if any of these are able to redeem the value of the ship. So first up here is the Admiralty card. This is 57 inch, 28 psi, 41 tack, and the special is plus 20 inch and tack when alone. And next up is the console Gamma Burst. This has passives on it to increase max hull capacity in Starship Draenix. And for the clicky, the tooltip on this is that it taunts target and 9 nearby foes within a 5 kilometer radius for 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, it does a point-blank area of effect gamma radiation burst in a 5 kilometer sphere, and to self for 20 seconds, it will provide plus 20% hull regen and 1200 all damage resistance rating. So I think there's two things that are going to be really appealing to people with this console. The first is the taunt to the target and up to 9 nearby foes within a 5 kilometer radius for 10 seconds. That's going to be a pretty big deal for some tank players. Taunts are not that common in the game, so I do think that there's going to be some tank players buying this ship just for this console. And then the 1200 all damage resistance rating, you're not actually going to be at 1200 resistance. There's diminishing returns with resistance, but 1200 is pretty much going to take you up to around that 75% cap that we have. And then for the Starship trait, this is Gravitic Inversion. With their expertise in gravity, the Promellians managed to create a device which generated gravitic inversions at 3 points around the ship. This trait is triggered by the use of a foe-targeted bridge officer engineering or command ability. And for the tooltip here, it will create 3 gravitic inversions at equidistant points around your ship for 15 seconds, draws up to 5 enemies to the epicenter of each inversion, does radiation damage, and it slows them down by 80%. And that can go off once every 45 seconds. So this does sound interesting. I'd be curious to see what sort of damage this is actually doing and how potent the control effect is here. But I do think that this trait is probably going to be appealing to some people that like to play around with control builds. And to wrap things up, what we have here with the Promellian is a bit of a mixed bag. The accessories look like there is potential for them to be interesting for some playstyles. The console looks like it could be interesting for some tank builds, especially with the taunt it has and the resistance buff. And the Starship trait looks like that could be fun to play around with on a control build. But when it comes to the ship itself, that Lieutenant Engineer just really, really limits what this ship can do. And if you're looking at, just the best option to go for a command intel ship, this is not it, unless you really want the accessories. So my recommendation is don't get it unless you really want to play around with the accessories and you have the resources to burn in the game. But, this is a ship that's going to cost hundreds of dollars to get for a single character, and I just really don't think it's worth it. But that is it for today, so let me know what you guys think of this down below. And as always, thank you to all channel members and viewers for the continued support. See you guys around.